Our next speaker is an expert on changing mindsets. Yes, she is indeed. Her impressive work has been highlighted by the comedian Jon Stewart and the philanthropist and TV star Oprah Winfrey. And she acts as an advisor to numerous international security boards. Here to tell us about what it takes to change behaviors is SDG Advocate and founder of the Voice of Libyan Women, Alaa Murabit.
Hello. How is everyone today? I've requested a podium, so this is the first time I feel like I am on level. So I want to first thank the Global Compact Office and, of course, Henry for that wonderful introduction. It was better than I had expected. And he's keeping everybody awake, which I think is quite a feat after lunch. Now, who here remembers The Jetsons, the television show? A show of hands. Yeah. Growing up, it was one of my favorite shows. I think because at the time, our technological prowess was limited to very loud dial-up tones whenever we wanted to use the internet. And my mom would always tell me to get off the internet if she needed the phone. And in this show, these flying cars and robots who would feed you dinner out of their stomachs was pretty far-fetched and entirely in line with what my childhood imagination thought an advanced world would look like. It seems impossible then that today, only 15 years later, we can span the world in mere hours and we carry a computer in our hand. I'm sure I'm not the only one who can say that my phone does everything except for breathe for me. Now, my 12-year-old self would be amazed at the world we have created. We have innovation at our fingertips and possibilities at our doorsteps, and we hold technology's fidgeting hand in ours. We create and we develop. But with this growth has come something quite dark. We don't live in the colorful, sophisticated world of the Jetsons we anticipated as children. We have put capital ahead of responsible production and ahead of human lives. We have created unparalleled growth through unconventional and often unfair methods. While we have committed ourselves to achieving our 17 global goals, in most places it seems as unlikely as those flying cars we were promised as children. Gender inequality persists, with poverty particularly continuing to disproportionately affect women and children. Education, the great equalizer, continues to be limited in both quantity and quality to people around the world, and bodies of children wash up on the shores as their families escape the harrowing consequences of an indifferent world. In Vietnam, a garment factory fails to meet global compliance standards. Low wages, sexual harassment, and harmful working conditions dominate. A woman wakes up early. She has to leave at dawn to get to work in time because she's cautious and wary of walking to work alone. Once she arrives, she sits on a broken chair under a roof with gaping holes. For hours, she meticulously sews rectangular labels onto orange cotton shirts, only to make a mere $6.70. She, like 70% of women in Vietnam, is vulnerably employed. And while it is sad to say, she is one of the luckier ones, in a factory where the majority of women face sexual exploitation and abuse simply for trying to put food on the table. A little further north, in China, an undergraduate student fills an application to her dream job. Her qualifications transcend most, except for one. She's female. She falls short by that one prerequisite. She is part of the 50% of women not in the labor force. I repeat examples of gender inequality. I repeat them to show that they exist at all levels, across sectors, within all countries. They exist just outside these doors, where African American women are more likely to be murdered and raped. They exist in Canada, where Aboriginal women are missing and endangered. Our inability to create safe, fair, and accountable environments for women has led to their exclusion from markets and from public spaces. So now I ask you to imagine a world without this. Imagine the tangible gains in productivity and the intangible satisfaction of citizens who get what they have earned. Imagine indisputable access to education for young girls and women globally. Imagine the protection of those most in need. Imagine the reprioritization of human rights. Imagine those 50% of women in the labor force. I often hear that the key to sustainable development in economies is national economic growth driven by large corporations. But we often ignore that large corporate growth does not equal a reduction in poverty. In fact, it often results in an increase in social inequalities. The education of girls and the employment of women, however, breaks that cycle of poverty, ill health, and child marriage. Only 2 years of education increases the national GDP by 1 to 2%. A girl who is educated is less likely to marry young. She is more likely to have less and healthier children. When employed, women reinvest, on average, 90% of their incomes back into their communities. Now compare that with the 30 to 35% that men reinvest. Economically, if women are equally employed, they would stimulate more growth than India and China combined. For those 800 million in poverty, the nearly 750 million hungry, the 202 million unemployed, our investment in this one goal, in gender equality, will have irrefutable implications. Nevertheless, today, parity is estimated to be reached only by 2056. In other words, another 50 years of grappling with a very unfortunate and confusing reality. And what of women in countries burdened by conflict? For these women, statistics have not been compiled and their voices have not been heard. Here, in the very room where governments pledge to uphold the foundations of the United Nations, we have to admit we have failed. We as a global community have failed the stateless, the tortured, and the disappeared. We must heed the experiences of those most affected by conflict and ensure that women are seated at every peace table. We must institutionalize what history has taught us and empirical evidence has proven, that without inclusive peace processes, 90% of conflicts will reemerge in less than 5 years, resulting in the absence of any kind of development, be it economic, political, or social. An investment into the education, employment, and participation of women will prompt the eradication of poverty, increase the literacy of families, raise environmental awareness, and decrease global conflicts. And I have not even mentioned the more abstract possibilities, unquantifiable by national percentages. The alleviation of familial burden, the lifting of societal restrictions, a siege into stronger institutions that do not belittle matters of exploitation, discrimination, and harassment. It seems clear then that it is just good business to have women at the table. We have to reprioritize human rights. Pandemics, climate change, migration, and violence should not only matter when they affect those who look and sound like us. And businesses have a responsibility to promote peace and justice rather than sow the seeds of conflict and poverty through tax evasion, land theft, labor exploitation, and toxic spillovers. Now is the time for introspection. It is why I, along with a number of my fellow Sustainable Development Goal global advocates, am pleased to announce that today a letter is being sent to Fortune 500 companies around the world to take 5 steps to align their businesses with the global goals. We are asking you to assess the value of your company's impact in the achievement of these goals. Specifically design your company's global goals targets with your board. Inform your shareholders and engage all your employees to participate. Be mathematical with your management. Be precise with your stakeholders. Be inspirational to your consumers and show them, by example, how committed you are to the achievement of these 17 goals. Finally, realize the faces behind the global goals. The commitments made by these companies will be collected and announced during the UN General Assembly in September here in New York. Luckily, we do have one thing on our side, and that's ambition. It's the ambition that got us the small computers in the palm of our hand. When I look back to the vision of the future I grew up anticipating, and I think of the world I see before me now, I am stunned by what we have accomplished and what I didn't even imagine then. Today, we possess the ability to reach every single person in the world. So let's do that. Forget the flying cars, the houses in space, or pet aliens. Let's create that colorful world we once envisioned, or for that matter, an even better one. Let's ensure that our investments in growth are actually investments towards the growth and change of mindsets. Thank you.